Welcome back to another episode of App Stories. Today's show is brought to you by TV Forecast. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited about today's show, Viticci, because we have a very special guest with us. We have Sigmund Judge. Hi, Sigmund. How are you?
Hi, John. Hi, Federico. I am good, but I'll be honest, very, very tired.
I bet you are. You've been very busy, very busy. Sigmund, of course, is one of the hosts of Magic Rays of Light and really an expert on all things tvOS and Apple TV and all those things. And he just finished writing a review for MacStories all about tvOS 17, which is up on the site. And so we thought, he's been busy writing. Why not give him a break and have him come on App Stories and tell everybody a little bit more about tvOS and what's going on with it this year?
And obviously, before we jump into tvOS with Sigmund, I just want to say that I am so excited to have, I would say, arguably the tvOS expert, the Apple TV expert, write a review about tvOS 17 for MacStories. When John and I were discussing this idea and obviously adding another review to the mix of annual reviews that we do, it's not something we take lightly. So if we wanted to do this, we were all in agreement. We needed to get it right to do it, to do the OS justice. And what better way than to get in touch with the tvOS guy, the expert, to get this done for MacStories. And we're really happy with the results, and we're really happy that you agreed to work with us for this project, Sigmund.
I'm so excited about this. But also, it was a process, right? And I'm really, really fortunate to obviously have the guidance of you two. It's like having two Mr. Miyagis, wipe on, wipe off. So that has been really fun as well. But this year in particular, I think is a big change in direction for tvOS. And tvOS 17. And as I mentioned in the intro to the review this year, there had been, I'd say, a bit of a crisis in confidence for the Apple TV. A lot going on in that world. Obviously, Apple TV Plus and the Apple TV app also going to lots of different platforms. And I felt like there was a moment where tvOS really wanted that moment. And now, suddenly they're competing with the likes of Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon and Ted Lasso.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting point. It's been a real, I think the streaming industry in general is so competitive and has been moving so fast over the last several years that, it's like the ground is shifting under tvOS almost continuously.
Yeah, very much so. But this year, the introduction of FaceTime and continuity camera and what that brings not only to SharePlay, but I think what it brings to the platform in general is a pivotal moment actually in what the platform can be. It's always been a very confident platform in terms of playing back movies and TV and playing games. And now, of course, it's going to be a conferencing device or a social device with FaceTime and SharePlay. But I think it almost teases that there could be even more.
Interesting. So before we get into those sort of overarching thoughts regarding tvOS, let's get into some of these changes to tvOS 17. And you raised a lot of good points in the chapters of the review. The first part I wanted to talk to you about is the TV app. So in the TV app, obviously you pointed out the problem of the Watch Now, sort of Up Next section having become this sort of advertising venue where, instead of putting the emphasis on people's content, becoming this place where Apple can advertise their shows. And in addition to that, which was a change that was introduced last year, and that you rightfully so complained about, you also wrote about some of these technical issues with handling large collections of TV shows and movies. Can you give us a little more details about that? Because and I think John is the same as me. I don't have thousands of items in my TV library, but I think, and as it was clear from the review, that you do, and that other people like you do as well. So what kind of technical and performance issues are there?
Yeah, so I've been collecting movies and TV shows digitally from iTunes pretty much since the iTunes store started serving video to customers. And over time, I've accumulated over 3,000 films and TV shows accumulatively.
Oh, wow.
And the big issue is that whilst the TV app has really had a focus more on aggregating those purchases with the streaming content, whether available now or upcoming, a lot is going on there. But when you go to the library tab, up until the beginning of this year, I wasn't actually able to load into my library on tvOS. So I amongst other people, filed a radar, and we managed to get someone at Apple to look at it. And there was a fix that came. But as you quite rightly say, there are people on movie collecting forums and social media who have maybe 3-4 times the amount of titles in their library.
Wow.
And they're not able to load up. And whilst things have been tackled on the tvOS side, the issue also carries over to iOS. So there are, because the TV app has had to do so much, there have been things that have been missed. And you have the foundations of a TV app that were, I believe, built on the foundations of the iTunes store and iTunes in general, right? So there's been a lot of building on top that likely are the reasons why we see some of those issues today.
Yeah, when you zoom out, it's really interesting to me because there's so much that has essentially been built on top of the foundation of iTunes. I mean, the App Store itself and the tools that developers use to upload their apps. I mean, I know when I developed an app years ago now, it had fields that only made sense if you were like a record label uploading an album, not your own an app developer uploading an app. Now, a lot of that's been cleaned up on the app side, but this also feels a little bit to me similar to a lot of the complaints I hear about Apple Music, because, there are people who collect music and they collect a lot of music, and Apple Music now is very much streaming oriented. And so I think that the purchased music side of things suffers as a result. And it sounds to me like maybe the same thing might be going on with the TV app. What do you think, Sigmund?
Yeah, I don't know whether or not people have the same issue. For example, if an album is re-released on a different label, if when they ask for Siri, it will play it if they don't have an Apple Music account, right? Will it play their purchase? Because that's the issue that we have in film, and we have had for a long, long time. And as that industry keeps moving very, very quickly, and smaller companies like MGM, for example, who were bought by Amazon, when those different deals happen, sometimes those rights also move to new versions of those releases. And because Siri is essentially basing its data based on what's available in store rather than libraries, you'll get moments where the TV app will say, oh yeah, you can watch this, but you need to purchase it again. Or
I see.
If a title, for example, is removed from sale and is exclusive for a little bit of time to a streaming service, you'll be pushed to subscribe to that streaming service, and the app ignores the fact that you spent $15 on a film previously.
Got it.
This special tvOS edition of App Stories is brought to you by TV Forecast, the iPhone and iPad app for tracking and exploring and discovering your favorite shows and movies. With TV Forecast, you can count down to upcoming episodes and movies and receive a notification when an episode airs or a movie is released. Plus, you can track both the movies you've watched in the past and the ones you want to watch in the future, as well as tracking your progress in TV shows. A really unique feature of TV Forecast is that you can watch a show with a friend or with your family and share your progress with them to keep everybody in sync, which I think is perfect for friends and family who are far away who are enjoying a show at the same time with each other. You can also know where something is available for streaming right inside the app, and if a movie has special scenes after the credits that are worth sticking around for, TV Forecast will let you know that too. Plus, the app includes detailed cast and crew information, and it can sort shows and movies however you like, pinning shows to the top, sorting movies by duration if you're looking for something quick to watch, and a whole lot more. The app supports widgets too, both on your lock screen and on your home screen, with both Up Next and Progress widgets available, and it syncs with Tracked TV. So your list of shows, movies, and progress are synced across every one of your devices. Finally, this is one of the coolest things I think that TV Forecast can do. It can actually connect to HomeKit and set a scene with a gesture, or when you check in with Tracked. When you're ready to watch something, just use that gesture or check into Tracked, and your lights, TV, and whatever else you have hooked up to a HomeKit scene for watching will be automatically triggered. So be sure to check out TV Forecast today. You can go to tvforecastapp.com/appstories to learn more and find a link to the App Store. Again, that URL is tvforecastapp.com/appstories. TV Forecast. Track, explore, and discover your favorite shows and movies. Our thanks to TV Forecast for its support of this special episode of App Stories.
All right, so let's talk about this is arguably the first change I noticed in tvOS 17, Control Center.
Yes.
So what is new with Control Center on tvOS 17, and why do we need a Control Center in tvOS 17?
I think the biggest reason for needing Control Center in tvOS is because the Apple TV, as we know, has gone from just playing back films and TV and music and playing the occasional game to much more than that. It's been the center of Apple's connected home story for a long, long time. And with the introduction of video cameras to Apple Home and Control and that kind of thing, along with AirPods, there are so many different things that can be connected and happen. And again, like the TV app, it's had to try and aggregate all of those things in a small space. What I like about Control Center is that this year, whilst initially I would say it looks quite busy and can be quite daunting for the average TV user, it's incredibly intuitive. And what I found with my mum, who had been trying tvOS probably for the same amount of time that I have, is that it took a few days to kind of get to the grips with the fact that, if I want to switch users, there's many ways I can do so, but I can go to this tab. Now I have quicker access to my home cameras, which I can just look at briefly. I don't even have to necessarily go full screen. And then you have things like VPN support and all of these different elements that are coming in that are quickly accessed. The cool thing about it also is that it adapts this time based on the context of what is connected, rather than having everything there in one place all the time. And that, I think, is really exciting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I actually hadn't noticed that. I don't spend a lot of time in Control Center. I will make an admission on the show that I don't switch users ever either. I
don't either.
It's just me and Jennifer really, so it's not as big a deal. But we just kind of share our login, I guess. We do have at one point I set her up as a separate user, but it's never something that's really clicked with us. And I guess part of that might be discovery. And I know you talked a little bit in your review about how Apple's done some things to make it a little more discoverable this year, Sigmund. What's changed there?
Yeah, so in terms of discoverability, the Control Center stays in the top right corner the whole time, right? And it's led with a profile picture of the profile that is logged in, which is a nice indicator. And there's a clock next to it as well, which is great for knowing the time. But if you're like me, you're constantly obsessed with the time. It's just another reason to look there, which I think is really, really cool. But inside the Control Center itself, I think there are many reasons to actually visit the Control Center. You said you don't, but you have your network settings, you have your game controller settings in there, but also you have some new additions. So, for example, there's a quick shortcut button for accessibility settings, which can be made, which I think is something that is quintessentially Apple in the sense that it is bottom center of the control center. It's not kind of tucked away at the sides. I think that is really, really important. And then you have a timer as well, which is really, really handy. I don't know if either of you have had a moment in time or continue to fall asleep to film or TV.
Oh, yeah. Every now and then.
Right. And what you'll find is when you wake up in the morning, you'll look at your up next queue and suddenly you've missed this big moment that you've been waiting for a long, long time. Obviously, you can go back and everything else, but it's a pain. And then the electricity bills. And did you actually get a really good night's sleep? So that timer, I think, is going to be really important to people.
So, Sigmund, one of the features I discovered actually from reading your review is the addition of Do Not Disturb to Control Center in tvOS. However, as you point out, it's not a focus mode. So it's not tying into your existing focus modes from iOS or macOS. It's like its own custom thing. Can you explain how this works?
So the first thing I'd say is I was disappointed because it wasn't the Do Not Disturb that tied in with all of your devices. But then I kind of thought about if that would work practically. And it probably caused more issues than it would solve problems. What this version of Do Not Disturb does, first off, it's a siloed experience that doesn't contact any of your other devices. But what it does is it removes any distractions or notifications that might come on your Apple TV. Of course, we get notifications about cameras or doorbells, which can interrupt a film night or something like that. But we also get notifications for live sports scores, which can be spoilers if we're doing something else. And one of my bugbears, it's really cool to get notifications that are quickly actionable for connecting AirPods. But if you've got other people that use AirPods in your household as well, and they're walking around and they're walking past or even in your vicinity, you'll maybe accidentally connect to those AirPods. That removes that notification as well. So yeah, really, really cool.
It. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's no shortcuts in tvOS 17 still. There's no shortcuts app. There's no shortcuts in Control Center. Can you run shortcuts with Siri on tvOS though?
You cannot. This is one of the things that's missing. On top of that, there's no way, for example, for like extra automations that I would really love to see, which I talk about. And that is the ability to have maybe if you open an app on the TV, maybe then that is an action that will trigger a shortcut on another device. That's something that I would like to see come hopefully in the future. And, for many years, I never thought that was possible because I didn't really see where the vision was for the OS in comparison to everything else. But this year, that's changed. So I see a future where we do see shortcuts. And I don't know, just talking about shortcuts very quickly, we've all had to action a shortcut. We might have done it through a HomePod, only to find that our phone was dead, and therefore that shortcut couldn't happen. The idea of maybe having the Apple TV serve as a shortcut server for everyone that was logged in with their iCloud accounts, that could be something that could come in the future as well.
Yeah. You have, I want to talk about this now. So you have this idea of tvOS becoming something more than just, and this is like the key takeaway from your story. Your idea of tvOS, you're essentially saying this is not just an operating system for a television device. I mean, sure, it does that. Like you can watch movies, you can watch TV shows, but there's clearly like this bigger narrative at play. With tvOS, I mean, you wrote about, and we tested it together, FaceTime and continuity camera, such an excellent feature.
Yep.
But your idea is that, well, tvOS, and especially now with tvOS 17, we're seeing the beginning of something that is something more than just an OS for a little device that you plug over HDMI into a TV. So where do you think, given all these changes, right? Changes to the video player, changes to the TV app, Siri, Control Center, FaceTime, AirPods, the home integration. Like, where do you think tvOS is going after testing tvOS 17?
Well, I think a big part of the story also is just all of the different tools that have quietly entered tvOS over the years, right? There's been the addition of Replay Kit, where you can record, all right? And then after that recording of a video game or something, there were possibilities in the past with certain games where you could then airdrop that video to a nearby phone, right, for editing or uploading, right? So those ideas have always been there for tvOS, but never really fully realized. And the addition of cameras and the addition of continuity camera, I think, leads tvOS to being one step away from actually being able to be a computer, right? A small creator could plug in their Apple TV into a capture device, watch a YouTube video via the split view mode, record that, and suddenly they've got a reaction video that they can upload. So there are things like that. Apple TVs, for example, they've always been used in production houses for easy ways for being able to do top-down shots via AirPlay and an iPhone. I think there's more to the Apple TV story. And if you think about it, you have iCloud, right, for the productivity suite from Apple, right? All you really need, because you already have keyboard support on tvOS, but you don't have a cursor. So if you add a cursor, suddenly you've got a working computer that you can at least log into and maybe do basic editing or but when you add all of the parts, I think there's more to Apple TV than just being a streaming box.
That's very interesting. I mean, I know it's already used in a lot of conference rooms, for instance, and in classrooms and universities for doing lectures and presentations and things. It's really not a very far leap to go to do something more than that.
And at like $180 for the top of the range Apple TV 4K with Ethernet, it could end up being a computer for developing countries And it could maybe be that answer. I know lots of people have always questioned what the answer is to Google's Chromebook from Apple's perspective. Maybe this is it. I don't know.
That is a fascinating way to think about tvOS that John and I obviously couldn't think of that because we are not the tvOS experts, John.
I think that what you and I do, Federico, is we shut off our brains the minute we sit in front of our Apple TV because that's our time to unwind. Sure.
Sigmund thinks about it. That's why we asked him to write a review. So before we wrap up this segment, Sigmund, so there's plenty of folks who've had this software update for tvOS sitting in their settings and ignoring that notification that they should update. Should people update to tvOS 17?
Absolutely. And probably the biggest reason to update is going to be, for many, is going to be the FaceTime and continuity camera. Yeah. But there's a stealth update that I don't think Apple have even really talked about yet. And that is shared spatial audio for 2 pairs of AirPods this time.
Yes.
That will basically allow both people to listen in Dolby Atmos or 5.1 or 7.1 soundtracks at quite a big bit rate as well. So I think that, and also the conversation awareness that comes to AirPods, that now not only comes to iOS, but it comes to tvOS. So if you're wanting to watch a film full blast, but you don't want to just nod to your partner and pretend that you can lip read and hear what they're saying and actually have a conversation when you need to, I think that's going to be great as well. So there are just lots of different user-specific features here that I think people are going to love, but also it represents a twist, I think, in the priorities for Apple TV after so many years of trying to be that aggregator for everything TV, and really so many years of trying to bend to the whims of those needs. This year is focused on the user and the people. So the people that love TV and film and the people that love Apple TV. And I think it's a love note really to those people. And that's why I'm so excited about this. And I'm so excited for people to read the review, learn what fantastic elements have come, but also what needs working on, and maybe share in that vision for the future.
That's a great spot to wrap up, Sigmund. It really is a neat update, and I had no idea about the spatial audio before I read your review, and I'm going to be testing that out with my wife and seeing how we like doing that. That should be, I think that's a great feature to have. I want to thank you so much for joining us, Sigmund. It's been a real pleasure, and it's been a real pleasure reading your review. I encourage anyone who hasn't had a chance to read Sigmund's review yet to go over to MacStories. We'll have a link in the show notes too, and read his review. Thanks, Sigmund. We loved having you today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to write for your great website, and can't wait to meet up in person again, hopefully before the next WWDC.
Yes.
I hope so too. It was great to meet you in person finally at WWDC this past June, and I want to thank our sponsor for this episode too. That's TV Forecast, a very appropriate sponsor for an episode all about tvOS. Mm-hmm.
And an excellent app, I should say. I know it's a sponsor, but I just want to say I love TV Forecast. So that's my endorsement. Not just because they're a sponsor, it's genuinely like such a great product. So I'm super happy this worked out.
And of course, you can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. Federico and I are both over on Mastodon too. You can go to viticci.macstories.net, and you can go to johnvorhees.macstories.net to find us there. We're on Instagram, where Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWS. And Sigmund, where can people find you online?
You can find me over on Mastodon, on Threads, and over on Twitter. or whatever it's called now, at Sig Judge, and no doubt you'll add some links to the places in the show notes as well. So thank you.
We will absolutely. And don't forget to check out Sigmund's podcast, Magic Rays of Light. It's a fantastic show all about tvOS and Apple TV Plus and everything related to those things. I know you have a great episode that came out not too long ago about the last Apple event. So check that out too. All right, Federico, I will talk to you next week.
Ciao, John.